Hi Enneagram Live, my name is Damien and today I'm going to talk to you about type 2s. Hopefully this will be a quick video because I'm just going to talk about one point, and that is that Enneagram type 2s don't like being given advice. They hate being given advice. And if you think about the type 2 is often called the helper. So the way they see it, like they imagine themselves as the helper. They're the person that gives advice. You don't give them advice. No, you don't give me advice. I give the advice. That's how the type 2 sees it. Like obviously pride is a big thing among type 2s, and so they feel like a lot of that advice and that help they give comes from that concept of themselves as being so prideful in themselves, as just the know-all, the be-all, the end-all, the guy that gets it, and to have someone else give them advice, like they hate getting advice. For example, this type 2 that I know, I remember we were meeting a group of guys, and this other guy was there, and this other guy is married, and this type 2 is not married, and he was telling this type 2 how he should meet women and that he should join these apps and how he should change his profile picture, and telling him all these things he should do to meet a woman, basically. And I could just see, like, as he was going into it and telling him more and more of this stuff, the type 2 was just getting more and more enraged, and you could just see it building up in him, and he just was getting pissed off. And I could see that he was hating every moment of it. And I could also tell the other guy had no idea that this was having this effect on him, and he didn't understand. Like, maybe he could see probably that the type 2 was getting pissed off, but he probably had no idea of why. He was actually just trying to make conversation, because we were just hanging out, right? And it's good when people make conversation. That's pretty much why people get together. And so the guy was just, talking about his knowledge of dating apps and the way to make yourself more attractive and get more likes, or whatever it is that you do on these different apps. And the other guy, because it was advice, and he was giving this dude advice, and the type 2 was in the role of this guy sitting there taking advice. He was just getting so pissed off with it. And then he started to get aggressive to the guy and be like, "Rah!" really angry and pissed off, and say these things against the guy. And I remember just being aware of the situation and seeing it and knowing, he can't handle being told anything, that guy. And this guy thinks he's making conversation about he thinks he's making a harmless conversation about dating apps, about good ways to meet people. But the type 2, he doesn't realize that the type 2 is taking it all as, you don't know. This is what you should be doing. You're not aware. That's what's going on in the type 2's mind. That's how he's taking it. And, you see that quite a lot. I remember the same type 2 guy. I was having this conversation with him about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, actually. And we were talking about this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teacher that I work with. When I teach Jiu-Jitsu, I work at his club sometimes. And I was talking about how this teacher is good, and how he knows how to teach, and he doesn't get caught up in the politics of the local jiu-jitsu scene and all of this sort of stuff. And then I started to talk about why he was so good at teaching jiu-jitsu, and why he didn't get caught up in the politics, and why he was a level-headed guy and all of this stuff. And I was just saying it, just to talk about this guy, just to say this is why this guy is so awesome, because he's experienced this, that, and the other thing, and therefore, because of that experience, he doesn't act like this, that, and that. And I wasn't even implying in any way that this other guy, that this type 2, didn't know that. But I could tell that once the dynamic changed, once he started talking about how good this guy was, and I was agreeing with him, I was like, he's really good, because blah, blah, blah. And then when it became me saying why he's really good, I could see the shift in the mind of a type 2, that he didn't like the fact that I was being too sort of assertive in talking about why this guy was type 2 and why this guy was so good at teaching jiu-jitsu. And so now saying he started to feel like I was telling him, like he didn't know, and that I was giving him the lecture on why. And yeah, it was a typical, oh, this type 2 doesn't like to take advice. And it wasn't, the thing is, it wasn't at all like advice. It wasn't at all like the guy that was telling him about how to put a profile picture on a dating app. That guy was fully giving advice. It was totally harmless advice. It was totally meant as conversation. And the type 2, or any level-headed person, would have just been like, oh yeah, just smiled and listened. And actually probably enjoyed the conversation. But because it was still definitely advice. But I wasn't even giving this guy advice. I was just talking about my opinion of this other guy. But the type 2 is so sensitive to, being given advice, that I could see that, he was suddenly disinterested when I started talking about how, he originally started talking about how good this guy was. And then when I started talking about how good this guy was, the type 2 felt like it was me telling him something, and you could tell that he was suddenly not interested in the conversation. And he wasn't getting angry. It's the same guy. He wasn't getting angry like he was getting angry when the guy was telling him actual advice about dating, because it wasn't actual advice. But I could certainly tell that suddenly he wasn't interested. He wasn't involved. He wasn't going to involved in. He wasn't listening. Didn't want to listen to me anymore. He wanted to totally shut down. He wanted me to shut up because it wasn't his comfort zone. His comfort zone is he tells people the way shit is. And so I could tell that, and I guess, course of the knowledge of the Enneagram. But I might have decided, okay, this guy, I can tell why this guy doesn't, why he's shutting down all of a sudden. But at the same time, I knew that I wasn't going, it was him being way too sensitive. So I just finished what I said, and that was that. But yeah, that's about it. That's the sole point of this video. I will also mention just quickly that I have actually heard someone else. There was an Enneagram teacher, and he has an Enneagram group in Australia. His name is David, and I remember him saying that the Enneagram type 2s hate. They can't be told anything. You can't tell them anything. Don't tell a type 2. You can't tell them anything. That's pretty much what he said. I just want to mention that because, I think it's difficult with plagiarism and things. I don't want to plagiarize anyone. So a lot of these things, most of it is from experience of dealing with people, the things that I talk about. And I've taken a lot of... Sorry, my microphone just cut out. But basically I was saying that most of the things I say, I don't need to give a citation for, because they're generally accepted principles within the Enneagram community and the Enneagram literature. There isn't one person that you can point at and credit for these things. And the other things I say are normally based in my own experiences. However, I'm happy to give citations for anything that can be credited to someone else. Thanks.